More than a year after Ghana's Central Medical store was razed to the ground by fire, a report on the incident has confirmed someone deliberately set fire to the facility.
According to the report of National Security, the fire was deliberately set to destroy evidence of theft and massive fraud and widespread irregularities in.
Though the arsonist, a laborer, is currently on the run, 12 officials of the Ghana Health Ministry, including the former head of the facility, Peter Eko-Jima, have been interdicted for their role in the fire.
The suspected arsonist, one Samuel Dogbe, a laborer at CMS, is currently at large and is being sought for by the security agencies.
Question: how did the investigators conclude that it was the laborer who set the fire? Who saw him setting the fire? Where was he at the time of the fire? And the bigger question: why has it taken the BNI almost a year to get hold of the prime suspect, a laborer? A laborer. And does the arrest of these 12 officials of the health ministry confirm suspicions of shoddy deals, including the injection of expired drugs at the expense of public purse? Okay, so what next now that the report is out?
Government has further directed the interdiction of all the above-named individuals until the final determination of their cases.
This is today's big story. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. The Central Medical stores is the biggest storage for medicines in the country. That's where we store equipment and drugs and for onward distributions across the region. Over 200 million cedis worth of drugs and equipment were destroyed in Tema, which nearly crippled healthcare delivery. Before the fire, the then minister, Dr. Kwaku Mensah, had initiated investigations into allegations of corrupt practices at the store. Now, the Attorney General, Marietta Bruopon, who announced the findings of the inquiry, stated that security agencies have been directed to initiate further investigations for possible prosecution, the role of the 12 officials, and any others who may have been involved in this.
It was established that the fire was deliberately set and that property damaged was worth millions of Ghana cedis. In all, 5 warehouses storing general pharmaceuticals, surgical dressing materials, stationery, and other items were destroyed. The suspected arsonist, one Samuel Dogbe, a laborer at CMS, is currently at large and is being sought for by the security agencies. According to the report of National Security, the fire was deliberately set to destroy evidence of theft and massive fraud and widespread irregularities in the procurement and distribution of medical supplies involving senior management and junior staff. It is believed that Samuel Dogbe was paid to set the fire in order to destroy the evidence. The motive for the destruction of the evidence was the fact that the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, had been tasked to investigate the circumstances surrounding the expiration of large quantities of drugs and medical items at the CMS. A stock count of all medical consumables had been slated for 13th January 2015 to be used for an exhaustive audit of supplies made to the CMS and allocations to health institutions in 2014. In other words, suspected irregularities and fraud procurement and allocations to health institutions and their imminent discovery by the planned investigations and audit provided the motive for the sponsorship of the arson. Among the irregularities and fraudulent activities in the procurement and allocation to health institutions revealed by the National Security investigations were the following. A. Malaria control program managers diverted large quantities of anti-malarial drugs meant for public health institutions. B. The system software for recording stock levels of medical supplies and keeping track of allocations was manipulated, rendering it ineffectual and facilitating massive diversion of medical items. C. Large quantities of artemether, lumefantrine, an anti-malarial drug, were stolen or diverted and sold to entities in Nigeria and La Côte d'Ivoire. D. Anti-malarial drugs were routinely diverted to non-existent NGOs. E. Some drugs were falsely declared to be close to their date of expiration so that permission would be given for them to be taken out for destruction. These were then sold to private pharmacy shops after permission had been granted for them to be destroyed. F. Expired drugs, mostly anti-malarial medicines, from a private pharmacy shop were sometimes swapped for good drugs supplied to the CMS by the company. G. 50 boxes of assorted anti-malarial drugs were hoarded by 2 officers of the CMS who claimed that the CMS had completely run out of those drugs. H. Following the discovery of widespread corruption in the sale of anti-malarial drugs, an embargo was placed on the sale of the drugs to private health institutions. However, an officer of the CMS evaded the directive and continued to make deliveries to private health institutions, falsely recording that those deliveries had been made to the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. I. Large quantities of pethidine, a highly controlled narcotic drug, were stolen from the CMS and sold mostly to a pharmacist at the 37 Military Hospital in Accra. J. Expired medical non-consumable items, including face masks and disinfectants, were regularly sold to private entities and the monies shared among the staff that facilitated the transaction. K. Supplies of medical commodities to the CMS were based on the issuance of acceptance certificates prepared by the Ghana Health Services for payment. However, procurements were made and certificates of payment issued without any effort at cross-checking at CMS to establish whether the right drugs had been supplied and in the requested quantities, among others. As a result of administrative and operational lapses identified at the CMS in the course of the national security investigation, government has directed the Minister of Health, with the assistance of experts and consultants, to undertake a thorough reorganization and restructuring of the CMS, including its systems, operations, and existing checks and balances, if any. The reorganization and restructuring exercise should take into account the following recommendations in the investigation report. A. Future supplies to CMS should be properly documented and stored. Tight control measures should be adopted for monitoring allocation of supplies to outside bodies, and similar measures should be instituted for supplies belonging to outside organizations that store products at CMS. B. Measures to minimize the incidence of the procurement of expired drugs and other medical items. C. The submission of the procurement unit of the CMS to due diligence in the procurement of drugs in line with the needs of medical stores to avoid excessive storage of particular drugs. D. The supervision and control of inventory officers by heads of the CMS warehouses. E. The institution of scheduled delivery systems for the delivery of drugs. F. A strengthening of the internal audit unit regime of the CMS to ensure constant monitoring of transactions at CMS. G. The reassignment of the current management middle level staff of the CMS so that a new team of professionals can replace them. Government also directs the team working on the reorganization and restructuring exercise to examine the possibility of decentralizing the operations of the CMS, especially drug purchases, to the regional level in order to minimize the risk usually associated with such centralized operations and purchasing, and the type of loss that has occurred in the fire outbreak. Government has directed the Police Criminal Investigations Department, CID, working in collaboration with the Bureau of National Investigations to prepare appropriate dockets with respect to each named individuals, their collaborators and accomplices, as well as other suspects named and unnamed in the report, with a view to their prosecution at my instance. Government has further directed the interdiction of all the above-named individuals until the final determination of their cases, subject to the provisions of the Human Resource Management Policy Framework and Manual for the Ghana Public Services. Government has also accepted the following modified recommendations in the investigations report. A proper forensic audit should be carried out to unearth the extent to which consumable and non-consumable drugs were diverted. The exercise should cover the distribution of mosquito nets meant for distribution at the various regional medical stores and district health institutions. Government has directed the Minister of Health, in consultation with the Auditor General, to constitute a special audit task force to undertake the exercise. The task force would work under the auspices of the Auditor General using the framework of the Audit Service Act. B. A forensic audit should be carried out into transactions between Volta Impex and the Ministry of Health. Information was gathered that an amount of 5 million Ghana cedis was paid to Volta Impex for the supply of 2 million prescription forms to the National Health Insurance Scheme in 2011, when the actual cost of the supply was 1 million Ghana cedis. It was further gathered that though Volta Impex supplied 100,000 copies of the prescription form, which was kept at the CMS, the Ghana Health Service and medical doctors in state-run hospitals and clinics declined to use it, describing the form as deficient. All the 100,000 copies of the forms were destroyed in the fire. It was later detected that the procurement unit of the Ministry of Health shielded the wrongdoing. Government has directed the same special audit task force to undertake this exercise. The special task force would work with the police CID, who will prepare dockets alongside the audit for possible prosecution of all those found culpable at the end of the two special audit exercises. Government has also directed the police CID to declare Samuel Dogbe, the suspected arsonist, a wanted person, and to take all necessary steps, including seeking the assistance of...
We're going to listen to the current Health Minister, Alex Segbefia, on this report.
The key person who possibly gave us a lot more information, Mr. Dogbe, is still at large. And efforts were being made to actually locate him, to really get to possibly the reason why, or others who may have been instructive in this unfortunate incident that occurred at the Central Medical stores. So, as well as the fact that the report is very comprehensive, as you've learned from the statement, there was the need to actually get as much information to deal with prosecutions that are to follow, as you've heard. And the key person who will throw further light on this is still at large. So we apologize for the delay, but there was method to our position in terms of the delay process. I keep telling my staff at the Ministry of Health that it is no longer business as usual. The report highlights the need and the basis for which transfers, movement of staff is really necessary within the whole civil service organization. When people stay in a place too long for a certain period of time, it is very easy, if you incorporate bad habits, for them to stay. We as politicians know the essence of movement. We are moved around quite frequently. The civil service does not do this. And it's quite clear that bad habits, when they are formed, are perpetuated and perpetuated to the time where you get to a point where somebody can decide to burn a whole central medical stores.
We're going to do some analysis, and we want to speak with anti-corruption crusader Vitus Azim. He is the executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Good evening to you, sir. Many thanks for your time on today's big story. Good evening to you, Mr. Azim. You are on today's big story.
Yeah, good evening. But
Mr. Azim, before this fire outbreak, the then health minister, Kweku Agyemang Mensah, had initiated investigations into perceived corrupt practices at the store. Hello, Mr. Azim, can you hear me now? I think we dropped, the line dropped. We'll try and get back Mr. Vitus Azim on the line and speak to him about perceived corrupt practices at the medical stores, and the fact that the report is pointing that 12 high officials at the Ministry of Health are involved in this fire. We'll also be speaking with Mr. Kofi Bentil and look at how we've mismanaged some of the things that are bought with public purse. And then we'll be looking at the report itself, the investigative piece, how one suspect who is said to be a laborer has been able to abscond, and the BNI, with all the high accoutrement, cannot lay hand on this laborer. We'll take a break on today's break story. Well, I'm told Mr. Vitus Azim is back on the line. Good evening to you, Mr. Azim. I was asking that before this fire at the Central Medical Stores, the Minister of Health then had initiated investigations into perceived corrupt practices at the medical store. Now, the report says that the fire was set up deliberately by arsonists to destroy evidence of fraud, irregularities, and foul play at the Central Medical Stores, including high officials at the Health Ministry. Are you surprised at the outcome?
It is not me being satisfied with the outcome. The fact is that government has demonstrated that it has taken this matter seriously. And I think that considering the sensitive nature of the central medical stores, the impact on all Ghanaians who use public hospitals, this is a welcome development. We don't actually mind whoever is involved, but the fact that some people have tried to enrich themselves or allegedly enrich themselves and to destroy evidence, if it's proved to be true, it's something that we should welcome, the fact that they have been smoked out.
Well, many thanks to you, Dr. Azim, for your time on today's big story. We can now speak with Mr. Kofi Bentil, who is Vice President of Imani, Ghana. I'm told he's not on the line yet. We can speak to Dr. Benanku, who is the President of Health NGOs in Ghana. Good evening to you, Dr. Benanku. Thanks for your time. Hello, Dr. Benanku. Many thanks for joining us on today's big story. Hello, Mr. Gilbert Benanku. Thanks so much for your time on today's big story. I think we're having problems with our phone lines. We'll try and get him back. But we'll also get Wing Commander Sogbojo retired to speak. Dr. Benanku, if you're on the line, good evening to you. Thanks for your time on today's big story.
Good evening.
Doc, so how does this strike you as the country records an outbreak of different strains of meningitis, and the fact that the Central Medical Store is not here to support and to come to realization that some few people are costing the whole nation for their self-interest?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, Ghana. And also thank you, Joy, for your good support to ensure that
I think we're having problems with our lines. We'll try and get them back on the line, but we'll also be analyzing the issue and speak with Matilda Homagan, who has been following this whole report. We'll take a break. We'll be back with today's big story. This is today's big story. We have Dr. Benanko back on the line. Good evening to you once again. We apologize for the drop in line. But earlier I was asking you, how do you feel and how does it strike you that we're facing critical moments that needed the attention of the medical stores? But now the medical stores is no more because some people decided to burn it for their interest.
Yeah, as I mentioned, yes, we were not happy when the report delayed, and now that the report is out, we expect the President of the Republic of Ghana to take full action on the recommendations from the report. At the same time, we understand there was an emergency plan to take care of any situation in the country, as the government of Ghana was advised. We expect that those emergencies are in place and they should be able to deal with the current crisis without any delay or processes. We also want to state that, notwithstanding the delay of the report, we all have to support to ensure that we manage this crisis we find ourselves in the health sector. And actually, the health sector really needs a transformation. All indicators are pointing out to the Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, that they need a change. They need transformation. They need to reposition the health sector to be able to respond to the challenging needs in the country. And leadership is very critical. We want to state that leadership in the health sector must be transformed, and that can help us respond to the global issues in the health sector.
Well, many thanks to you.
We think that the processes are being slow, and somebody have to take the bull by the horns to ensure.
And I'm sure government is doing that by first interdicting 12 officials of the the Ghana Health Service who are suspected to be involved in this fire. Many thanks to Dr. Gilbert Benanko for your time on today's big story. We apologize for our telephone lines. We were unable to bring to you some discussions from Kofi Bentil, who is Vice President of Imani Ghana, and also Wing Commander Sogwajo to do some security analysis of this report. We've been talking about the report of the Central Medical Stores and the fact that some 12 people have been arrested, high management people or officials of the Ministry of Health, and the fact that a laborer who is prime suspect of this fire has absconded, and it's taken the BNI almost a year to lay fingers on this particular gentleman. This is today's big story. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for your time.